Welcome everybody to the webinar today. We're going to be talking about the Flex 5 project. I'm Brandon. I am the product director here at Flex Rental Solutions. I've been working with Flex 5 for about the past 3 years now. They kind of brought me on board as we were planning and developing the mobile project and getting kind of a Flex 5 version of our mobile app up and running. And I had the opportunity to plan and, basically do requirements and kind of come up with the basis for that app and help all of our wonderful developers know how we needed to build that. And then as we started moving into the Flex 5 desktop project, I was a natural fit to kind of manage that project as well. So I've been here doing that working on the desktop project for about 2 years now, just doing some deep level planning initially and active development for the past year or so, and continuing every day to sort of manage the active development of Flex 5 desktop. And that's what we're going to be talking about today, is just some of the progress of desktop Flex 5, what the future looks like for some of the features that we're going to be developing, and things like that. I wanted to start with just a brief overview. Every time that I do one of these Flex 5 webinars, I like to talk about just a little bit of the history of how we got here and just a little bit behind the scenes of Flex 5 in general and what it means for you. So obviously, the reason why we're doing this is because our current product is based in Flash, and Flash is dying soon. We need to get off of that platform so that you could still use our software. So we're redeveloping the entire application in HTML5, and that's kind of where the Flex 5 name comes from, is from that 5. That's been going really well so far. It's not just a front-end rewrite, and I think a lot of you already know this, but just if you don't know this, it's an interesting bit of information that we're not just rewriting the front end of the whole application in HTML5 to get off of Flash. We're also doing a lot of back-end rewrite as we go. The reason that we're doing that is, Flex is a great product. It's been serving people well for a long time now. There were a lot of things that we learned along the way. And as we learned some of those things, unfortunately, we may have been stuck with some of the processes and the back end we set up, 10 years ago, and we wanted a 5 years ago solution, but we were kind of stuck with what we wrote 10 years ago. So some of those things would include like our scanning process, availability engine, just a lot of the processing and logic that goes into using Flex. We decided that it would be in our best interest to rewrite a lot of that as well. That said, there are some things that are very complex where, we've rewritten the front end in HTML5, but we're still kind of delegating to the old back end for now. Some things will still be using the old back end, but a lot of things will be using not only a new front end, but a new back end. You can really benefit from not only the speed and performance that comes with using an HTML5 app, but also better back end, better processes and logic and things like that. One place that we're hoping you'll really notice that is just in opening, creating quotes. I'll show you a few examples of opening large elements like a quote or a pull sheet, and just how much better that experience is in Flex 5 versus our older version of Flex, which we typically call Flex 4. We didn't really call it that when it existed, but now just to differentiate between Flex 5, our old product, we call it Flex 4. So when I say those terms, that's what I'm talking about. Flex 5 is the new product. Flex 4 is the old product that most of you are using day to day now. But yeah, and a few other places that you'll really see some benefits and improvements will be like in the scanning process and things like that. We've really been able to see some significant performance improvements in those areas. Now, the one thing that I always like to say before we get into any of this is that Flex 5, while it is technically considered a new product, it's still using all of your same information. And so the getting onboarded with that Flex 5 product should be relatively smooth for most people, because we're using your same database, your same information, all of your same users with their security permissions, all your same inventory, your quotes, everything that you have set up in Flex 4 now is available to you in Flex 5, because even though we're using a new front end, in a lot of places a new back end in Flex 5, it still communicates with the same database. And anything that you update in Flex 4 will update in 5. Anything you update in Flex 5 updates in 4. And we found a really good solution for keeping those products in sync. And also a lot of what we're doing in Flex 5, just the user interface and the user experience is very similar to what you're used to in Flex 4. We've updated some things to make it a little bit better and a little bit more modern. And there's a couple things that we've updated a little more significantly, but for the most part, you're not relearning a whole new software. You might have to relearn where a button is or just where you access certain information. But the quote building process, the scanning process, the inventory management process is still very much the same. And you'll see that as we get in and start demoing Flex 5 here. So let's just jump right in. I'll leave my video on for just a second. And then once we get into the bulk of Flex 5, we'll turn that off so that you can get the full user interface experience. The first thing that I want to say is that we are still in beta. Now, every customer does have access to Flex 5. We've given that access as of 2 months ago. If you want to access Flex 5, then you can either see links in your Flex 4 product. You've probably seen the new link kind of up in the corner. And when you have certain elements open in Flex 4, you'll see something that says open in Flex 5. That's one way that you can get to Flex 5. The other way is to just use your normal Flex address, and you type that up in your web browser up here. Well, I've got my bar kind of disabled right now just for the full screen. But when you're typing that into your web browser, you would just type in your normal web address, but then at the end, you would put a /F5/UI/. Now, don't put that in here. Don't put it into the login. I just wanted to show you that so that you could see it visually. You would put that into your address bar, and that will load up the Flex 5 UI for you. And like I said, because your users and all your information is still came over from Flex 4, you're just going to log in with the same exact credentials and information that you have from Flex 4. I'm going to be working in my own personal test system today. It has more or less all of the latest and greatest feed functionality. We just dropped a new release today. Pretty much everything that you see here, and I've kind of got a little thing turned on that's showing us some hidden features too that you might not see in your system just yet, but make those features unhidden once they're tested and ready to go. So I'll be showing you a mix of things that are currently available to you, some things that what we call a work in progress that turned off for you, but will be turned on once they've passed testing and we've determined that they're ready for customers to see. I'll make sure and let you know what is on and off, so I won't necessarily be demoing anything or I will demo things that you may not have available, but I'll let you know that those things aren't turned on for you, so you're not confused as to why you can't see it. Let's just start with kind of a basic overview of what the user interface is like. The biggest change that you're going to notice is the menu bar along the top. We decided to make that a little bit more modern and clean and put your menu options into what we call our hamburger menu. It's going to be the same menu options. And as you click through those, you're going to see a lot of them just haven't been enabled yet. And that's fine. That's expected because those are just things that we are working on bit by bit, and they will become available, develop them. So don't be discouraged by seeing so many things disabled. That doesn't mean that we're going to have those features. That doesn't mean that we're not going to do them. That just means we haven't done them yet. But we have on our active timeline to get to a majority of these things before the end of the year. Some things that we don't get to by the end of the year, but we are confident that 95% of what you do day to day will be available to you in Flex 5 by the end of the year. And for anybody that still needs to access Flex 4, we will have options for you. And we'll give you some more information about those options. Develop them a little bit further, but we do have options for you if you need to access Flex 4 past the Flash end of life date. The things that we will have available to you in Flex 5 will include all of your day-to-day functionality, like your calendar. And again, this calendar I don't have a lot on my calendar, so we have to go back a little bit, but your calendar is going to take the settings as you have them set up in Flex 4. We haven't implemented the settings in Flex 5 yet. We will get to that sometime this year. But for now, it's just kind of pulling up all of the information as you have set up in Flex 4. So here's all of my calendars, all of the different columns and things that I have set up and the date ranges and things like that. So in Flex 5, just like you're used to in Flex 4. But a couple new things like the Today button, for example, that was a big request that we would get from people. Say that you've gone, way into the future because you wanted to look at what's happening next year through April, but then you just want to get back and view today. You don't have to click back a bunch of times like you did in Flex 4. Just click the Today button. It brings you back to this date range. And again, the user interface is very similar, just a little bit updated. The one thing that you're really going to notice during this entire demo is that HTML5 just really brings a whole new element of smoothness to application. Flash was kind of notoriously, how do I put it, jumpy. Things would kind of skip as you try to scroll through. In fact, a lot of times you could barely even scroll effectively in Flex using the Flash product. But look at this. When we have something that's going off of the screen, oh, the scrolling just works so much better. So very similar UI to what you're used to, but you're just going to see such better performance, just nature of this being developed in Flex 5. So that's one thing you're going to notice quite a bit as we go through this demo. So just going through a few more UI elements, the resource browser that you're used to, that was kind of in an accordion menu off to the left-hand side. We still have that, but now it's in more of a pop-in, pop-out type menu. So you have all of your things that you're used to, your contacts, your inventory and services, your recent history, but it's just a lot easier to pop that in and out now instead of having to, like in Flex 4, you always just kind of had to make it smaller and make it bigger when you wanted it. So now you can kind of just leave it where you like it, and it just goes in and out real easy. You'll see the same thing when we have like a quote or something open with the right-hand menu. We did something very similar. But again, I'm going to say this a few times, like everything that you have set up in your Flex system is just automatically going to port over to Flex 5. You don't have to do any additional setup. You don't have to click a button to import all of your inventory to Flex 5. It's just all going to be there with the same icons, the same structure, and everything that you're used to from your previous system. Let's start just by looking at a few of these resources, because there's kind of a new user experience with all of these resources that makes them a little bit more unified. In Flex 4, when you open a contact, you have one kind of user interface. When you open a service, you have another kind of user interface. When you open inventory, you have another kind of user interface. What we decided for Flex 5 is, since all of these are considered resources, everything that's a resource should really have more of a unified user interface. And so we've changed that a little bit, and I think it really kind of captures a better user experience generally, so that you can get through to the information that you want. So for example, let's open my employee contact. Oh gosh, I forgot I put that picture there, but we'll deal with it. Basically though, we have, in fact, I forgot I was going to turn off my video just so we can see the UI a little bit better. There we go. Basically, we have the same layout that you're used to because inventory, I think, really was set up in a good way with your main information and then the tabs underneath that show you everything else. So an inventory model layout is what we kind of used our basis for when we open a contact now. And the same thing with services. If we open a service, like a labor service offering or something, we use that same layout where we have the main information on top and then all the other information in tabs at the bottom. So it's just a little bit more of a unified layout now, where anytime you have a resource open, you kind of get the same user experience. And everything fits really well into that user interface as well. It's a lot easier for us to put in all of the information that's associated with a contact, as opposed to having all of these different little, widgets laid out on a single screen. That wasn't terrible, but a lot of times the feedback that from people was it was just there was a lot of information showing on one screen, and it's just a lot easier to manage when you have that information in tabs along the bottom. So I will tell you that for contact, some of the things that we kind of have on our planning list that we want to get to soon will be the skills and qualifications tab. And some of these that we just don't have enabled yet, but those are in active planning right now so that we can develop those sooner than later. The things that we do have available, though, are things like the phone numbers, addresses, internet information. And again, it's just, I think, a whole lot easier to navigate this. If I want to add a new phone number, I just come down here, add the information. And I have that here, and I can manage which one is default. I can even call that number straight from the application. If I want to delete one or multiple, I just select those and go delete. So the user experience, I think, is just a lot here. Very, very similar things with inventory. Not a whole lot has changed with inventory, but we kind of have added a few new functionalities that I think you'll really like. So we still have the tab approach, quantity, serial units, if you're a serialized inventory model, out of commission, suggestions, etc. We decided would be a really good new feature that we wanted to implement because we've gotten so many people requesting this, is the ability to do bulk editing. So let's say that we're over here. I've added a whole bunch of suggestions and I want to add types to those, or I want to make them all auto-included. In Flex 4, I'd have to do that one by one. And if you have 20, 30, sometimes up to 100 suggestions, which I know some of you do, just take a very long time. So in Flex 5, now you can just select all, go to bulk edit and say, I want to change the suggestion type or add multiple suggestion types. And there you go. Not a terribly dramatic example with only 4 items, but you can imagine how awesome that is with 20, 30, 50 items. And again, everything's just so much faster, so much smoother. It's a lot easier to delete things, change things, things like that. And we've implemented that on all of the tabs. You can do bulk editing on a tab where you have multiple resources in that tab. Serial units, kind of similar. We use that same layout that you're used to. The one big thing that you'll notice that's kind of different is we're trying to get away from a right-hand menu approach for our resources. So basically means is that now instead of going to the right-hand menu to edit or to copy or to do, all the various things that you would do with your inventory model, we're putting icons up here now that are just a lot easier to access and a little bit less intrusive. So you have more screen real estate, and it's a lot easier to just come right over here and say, I want to edit this inventory. Or I want to return to the parent item, or I want to print the barcode or delete this inventory. So it's just a lot easier to get to those options. And then some of the right-hand menu options you might be used to, like bulk editing serial units or things like that, we've actually into each grid. So if you want to bulk edit serial units, and this is actually something that a developer is working on right now, so it's not available, you would do that here. If you want to add a new serial unit, then it's just down there. So that's kind of the overall layout of these resources. Is if you want to change something about the resource itself, then you'll have menu options up here. If you want to change something about something that's in one of the tabs for that resource, then you'll have the options down here. And that layout, it works pretty well for almost every screen that we have in Flex, and just a much better user experience so that you know where everything is and where to go to edit, and you're not looking for various options in a menu or something like that. And not a whole lot to show with services kind of layout. You still have the same options that you're used to from Flex 4, assigning different roles or skills and qualifications, the pricing and everything. All of that is there. The one thing I really want to show you, I'm super excited about this. We worked hard on this, and I think we came up with a really, really good solution that you're going to be very happy with. Let's try, I need to find something that doesn't have an image. I think most of my, well, this one does not. In Flex 4, you might be used to process, as I'll call it, of having to upload a model image. I'm not going to go to Flex 4 just because I don't need to put us through that pain, but basically it took about 10 steps. It was clicking the upload icon, it was finding the file, it was rotating it, it was uploading it. So there's just so many different steps that went into that process, and it was kind of cumbersome. So what we've done in Flex 5 though is just made that much, much easier. So you could do this one of two ways. You could browse for the image, and that will just launch your file browser, or you can drag and drop the image directly onto this section, and it brings you right to the crop and rotate and edit your image. And let's do that. Let's zoom in on Chris a little bit. It's one of my favorite pictures of Chris. And see what I did there? I just uploaded an image with about 3 steps. I could realistically even do that in 2 steps if I'm not doing any sort of crop. I think most of these already have images, so I'm not going to change any of those. But in reality, if I just want to drag and drop something and then just click upload, then all of a sudden I'm uploading an image in just 2 very simple steps instead of the 10 that it took in Flex 4. I just like that kind of stuff because those are the things that we're thinking about as we continue to develop Flex 5 is how can we make things easier? How can we make things in fewer steps? There are some things that we're just kind of stuck with the way that we did in Flex 4, but we can improve a little bit. But some things we've been able to just completely turn on its head and do something very different. So I don't want to spend too much time just going over every single thing. I want you to be able to explore some of that on your own. So feel free to log into Flex 5, try our cool new search where you can select multiple things to search for or search for only. Always be checking out our latest release notes so you can see the things that we've just implemented recently. So yeah, I'm not going to every single thing. I just want you to be able to explore some of that. I want to show you a couple examples of just really cool things that we have improved in Flex 5. And then I'm going to show you a couple of things that we're working on right now so that you can get an idea of what you can expect over the next month or two. So first, let's open a quote. One of the biggest changes to the user interface here is that we've split the header, details, and totals into separate tabs on the bottom here. We did that for a very specific reason. Let's say, and I'm going to close this and we'll reopen it. Let's say that I want to just change the shipping method of this quote. In Flex 4, if I were to open this quote and let's say that I had 300 line items on it, it would sit there and load, sometimes for 10, 20, maybe even more seconds, depending on the quote. All I wanted to do was just come in here and change this and be done with it. So that's one reason that we did this, where we kind of split them out. So if I just want to do something on the header, then I'll just do something on the header and call it good. However, remember how I was talking about how we've improved backend processes. Even a very large, detailed quote with a lot of line items is going to load so much faster than it did in Flex 4. So let's do this really quick. I'm going to expand everything. Let's select all. We'll go to copy. 67 lines right now. So let's just paste that entire thing. And you know what? I'm feeling good. Let's do it again. And hey, I'm feeling crazy. Let's do it one more time. So we're essentially turning this into a 500 plus line item quote. Let's close it and reopen it again. And that took about, 3 seconds to open that 500 line item quote. And we have examples of 5,000, 6,000 line item quotes in some of our test systems where that takes about 6 or 7 seconds to open the entire quote. So the improvement in speed and performance there is just drastic. And I think that's really going to help with just how you use Flex day to day. No more waiting, no more sitting there and watching the spinning wheel. Things are just loading so much faster. We had a really great example with a customer the other day where they just wanted to view certain quotes for a certain customer. And they're a very big customer, our customer big. So when they go to their quotes list, sometimes in Flex 4, that would take 10 to 20 seconds just to load. But because we have better pagination here, because we just have better backend processes, that loads so much faster now. When I want to come over here and filter by company or contact or whatever, and I just want to look at various quotes for that. Oh, that's the same one I already had open. I mean, what would have taken them minutes, if not 10 to 15 minutes to do in Flex 4 was literally taking 30 seconds to a minute to open up, review all of the various quotes for that one customer. And it was just so fast. So those are the kind of improvements that we're expecting with Flex 5, and we hope that all of our customers are able to see that regardless of size of quote, database, and things like that. Obviously, if you do experience some slow performance, we want to know about that. We're taking that kind of stuff very seriously. And if we see any slowness, we're going to get right to the heart of what the problem is and figure out how we can fix it. Just to quickly look at quotes again. Again, not really a whole lot has changed besides some of that user interface. All of your different views will still be there. Anything that you've set up previously in Flex 4 will still be there. Menu options are still pretty much the same. There's going to be a few things that you may not have yet. So one example is this. Because I have my work in progress stuff turned on, I can see the enter option. Whereas right now that's not turned on for all of you. There's just one little bug that we're still, see this thing right here, trying to figure out why that's happening. The payment is still getting created. Everything processes just fine, but we're trying to see why that unknown error is popping up. So that's why we haven't released it to customers yet. But it's almost ready to go, looking into that last little bit. But that's just an example of some of the things that we are currently working on that you'd be able to see yet in your Flex 5, but we may take it out of that working status in the next 2 weeks or maybe the next month. We'll keep you updated on all stuff. We have newsletters put out that give you an update on that. And also just always click on that what's new icon. Every 2 weeks, you'll see the latest release and all of the new things that we've implemented there. So I just wanted to show that as an example of, you might see things in this demo right now that you don't see in your system. Just hold, things will start appearing for you with each release. If there are things that we're just straight up not planning on releasing or implementing, then we'll have some documentation to know about that as well. So let's do just kind of rapid fire of things that you can and can't do in Flex 5 right now, and then things that you should be able to do in the near future. So like I said, you should be able to create, manage all of your resources, contacts, inventories, services. You should be able to view any financial document. So not just a quote, but anything that is set up as, and so in my system, we have various types of POs, things like that. You should be able to edit any of those types of things. You should be able to do some big forms of scanning, free scan in, free scan out. And as of the release today, you can officially use Content Builder now. I know that Marcus did a recent webinar on that, so I'm not going to do too much on this, but Content Builder does have a little bit different mentality where now it's in its own screen, so that we can take advantage of all of the various things like your sound themes and prompts and things that you didn't get before when you were managing containers by opening up a serial unit, going to the contents tab and all of that. So all of that is now done in a separate Content Builder screen, but the user experience for Content Builder is pretty much the same. You'll still be scanning something to see the storage requirements, scan items that you want to put into that container. You can empty your container, virtual scan items, things like that. So the actual functionality is still the same. You just kind of access it a little bit differently. And you'll be very pleased to know that we've retained the functionality where if I'm on like the calendar screen and I want to scan a container to build it, it will open in Content Builder. So you can just immediately start scanning the contents and not have to go back to your computer and click around to get to Content Builder. So that is available to you as of this release today. I hope that you guys can mess around and give us some feedback if it's working well. We put it through some very ring and it's looking very good to us, but we're always happy to hear you back on that as well. Things like Crep and return scanning, that is being worked on as we speak. I am able, because I am in a test system, I can show you the progress on that. So right now we can pull up the list of items on a pull sheet that we want to prep. You can virtual scan. All of your various prompts that you're used to will show. It looks like we need to figure that one out, but still a work in progress, so some things might not work as we expect. We have our last scan section. Just recently, our developer, it looks like I don't have that one yet. I don't know if we've merged it, but he recently worked on the substitute scan functionality. He recently worked on the scan selected items functionality. He just implemented the ability to open and build things into a free pick container. He implemented the ability to finalize, and he's working on the ability to undo a scan. So we're getting really close to the basic functionality of prepping and returning a job so that we'll be able to take that out of status and actually release that to you. We're just making sure that we've covered all our bases. We're making sure that it is tested properly. We have an amazing QA team who gets into every nook and cranny and makes sure that the feature is working well. So we just make sure we do all before it gets to you. But prep and return is being relatively well. I think the running hours prompt is something that we have to look at. But otherwise, that functionality is coming along really well. I'm really excited about that. I don't have an exact estimate for when you will be able to use this, but I'm hoping within the next month or two, it's not going to be end of year kind of thing for sure. Other things that you can do, as I'm trying to remember now, I don't think we were able to take it out of work in progress yet, but for the next release, we're hoping that we will have the ability to edit and create pull sheets. Right now, you can technically create a pull sheet from a quote workflow, but you won't be able to come in and edit that pull sheet. There was just one last little bug that we were figuring out, and it looks like we're looking pretty good on that. So we'll take that out of the work state. So hopefully in the next release, you'll be able to see this. And then, like I said, sometime in the next month or two, you'll be able to go to prep and return your equipment lists as well. And then a bunch of other things that are just currently a work in progress. We're working on a lot of the various menu options. We're working on finishing up more of the inventory tabs and menu options. We also just had a couple of our developers start the process of working on some of the system settings pages. I'm going to jump in. It looked like I was getting the functionality in my test system there, but I know that it's here. So if we go to our system settings menu, we're trying to get a few of these system settings options that are more of the things that you utilize on a frequent basis. And so we're getting some of those things that will be things that customers need when they're first getting set up. And then we're going to have things that you will access frequently, like your users and some of those other things, maybe like your pricing models. We're looking at trying to get that in sometime this year. All the things that you would use more frequently, we're trying to get onto the system settings menu. And that's where I mentioned earlier that there might be a few things that a very small amount of customers will still have to use Flex for, and that might be some of these deeper system setting things that you don't really touch on a day-to-day basis. But if you do need to go in and change something with your safe work methods or something like that, some of those options might not be available in Flex 5 before the end of the year, but we will have options for you to be able to still access the Flash app. A few other things that you can do, just have our little user section down here, just kind of jumping through a few of the things that I know we've implemented recently. just creating new contacts and inventory. I've already mentioned that. But I think that's a pretty good overview of what you can do now in Flex 5. And then, like I said, we're just prioritizing, looking at all of the things that we haven't implemented yet and assigning those to our 3 full-time developers and our 2 contracted developers. So we have 5 people who are working on this all the time, and they're just pounding away nonstop at Flex 5 features. So things that I know that will be coming soon will be the ability to print barcodes from Flex 5. So you can open any of your inventory models and use the print barcodes option. That's just going through a little bit more testing, and then we'll make that available. I already mentioned the ability to prep and return scan. We're working on running global reports and giving you the option to do that. More and more of our system settings options. Some of the other things we'll be working on soon will be like our inventory manager, ability to crew staffing and things like that. So all the things that you use on a frequent basis, those are the things that we're working on right now. And for the next 6 months, we're going to get as much as we humanly possibly can get done with those features that you're using day to day, so that after the Flash end of life deadline, you will not have to use the Flash product except for some rare occurrences where you might need to work on some system settings or things like that. But rest assured, building quotes, scanning your inventory, managing your inventory, contacts, and services, all of that will 100% be available to you in Flex 5. All of that day-to-day stuff that you need to do every day. So that's kind of our overview of where we are with Flex 5 right now. I know we have